Now I say this a lot, but how cool is this? You guys are getting a really inside look at this thing. Not everyone gets to do that. Bam! 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 Hitting U.S. Navy squadrons in mid-1971, the EA-6B Prowler was developed from Grumman's A-6 Intruder attack aircraft. The Prowler's primary role was to protect Navy ships and aircraft by jamming enemy radar and communications, but it could also perform electronic surveillance as well. Known as electronic attack, the EA-6B was more than capable of jamming anti-aircraft gun and missile radars, as well as radio, internet, and even cell phone communications. Although it didn't carry any guns, this aircraft wasn't without teeth. Carrying up to 4 ALQ-99 jamming pods, the Prowler was one of the baddest aircraft in the air. Although the Prowler first entered service during the Vietnam War, it has seen action in Operation Desert Storm, Enduring Freedom, over Bosnia, Herzegovina, Kosovo, and most recently, Syria. But after nearly 50 years of service, the venerable Prowler is now being replaced with the more capable EA-18 Growler, an offshoot of the successful FA-18 Super Hornet. Let's get up in the cockpit of the EA-6B Prowler at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum and explore the unique features of this aircraft.
Like we like to do on Behind the Wings, we like to get you guys into places that most people are not going to see, and bam, here you are in the cockpit. How cool is this? And this is where 2 of the 4 crewmen sat. You had a pilot and 3 ECMOs, which are electronic countermeasure officers. And their sole purpose was to jam radar sets, listen in on radio conversations, and generally wreak havoc on the electronic battlefield. And they did a great job at it. One of the things I really love about this cockpit is it's been signed by one of the former pilots. It's a Lieutenant Commander J. Elrod, who is known as Yum Yum. But VAQ-134, which was the squadron that flew this aircraft in combat, was transitioning over to the EA-18 Growler, which is actually the Hornet version of this plane. And so they didn't need these anymore, and we are lucky enough to have gotten what's known as the CAG bird. That's why it's so colorful. And CAG stands for Commander Air Group, which means the guy that commanded the entire air group on the George H.W. Bush flew this plane, and I'm sitting in it.
If you take a closer look at our Prowler, you start to see some interesting details. Like on the wing of this aircraft, there's what looks like a bomb. Nope, this is just a drop tank, but there used to be a weapon here.
Now, what would have been carried here on a real mission would have been an ECM pod, which stands for Electronic Countermeasures, which is a bigger part of this guy's mission, which is SEED, which is Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses. It's a whole lot of acronyms being thrown at you at once, and trust me, it does not come off the tongue very easily. But that's the mission of an EA-6B, is to suppress enemy aircraft defenses. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you've got anti-aircraft missiles, anti-aircraft guns, they're all controlled by radar today. And the pods that would be right here are jam-packed with electronic gear that can totally take out these things by jamming them. But better yet, they can launch a very specific weapon. This thing doesn't carry bombs, it doesn't carry its own guns, it carries a very specific weapon called a HARM. One more acronym. That's High-Speed Anti-Radiation Missile. This guy is incredible. It's got a speed of 1,400 miles an hour and a range of nearly 100 miles, which means that these guys can sit way back, launch their missile, and even if the bad guys turn off their radar, the HARM remembers where they are and boom, no more problem for the fighters and the bombers. And standing in front of the spaghetti bowl, at least that's what I call it. It's nothing more than really just all the wing fold mechanism for this aircraft. Now, why would you want to fold the wings? Because, like I mentioned earlier, this is a Navy plane, and when you're on an aircraft carrier, space is at a premium. So what do? You fold the wings, and you can jam a whole lot more planes together. Just look at all that detail up there. Somebody had to think all that stuff up, and I'm glad it wasn't me, because I ain't no engineer. That's why I'm in the museum field. But let's do one more thing here. Let's go talk about the history of this plane in VAQ-134, because that's the important part. Bam! What is this? It's Garuda. All right, what is Garuda? Well, Garuda is the Hindi folklore mount of Vishnu. All right, I don't understand all that, but it was pretty cool to the guys that started VAQ-134 because they named their squadron the Garudas. So this is one of 2 aircraft in our collection that have actually seen combat. I like that kind of stuff. Most of the other planes in here are just trainers, but this guy, been there and done that.
While the EA-6B Prowler is no longer in service, VAQ-134 still is. So let's go check out what the Garudas are flying at the home of electronic attack, Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, Washington.
Woo! It is a chilly, brisk morning here in Washington State, and we're at NAS, bam! Whidbey Island. NAS standing for Naval Air Station. It's the home of VAQ-134, the Garudas. Woohoo! And it's the home for airborne electronic attack for the entire Department of Defense. That's a huge job, which means there are 8,400 different sailors here on base. And since we haven't seen anything, it's time to get going.
Naval Air Station Whidbey Island is located 2 hours northwest of Seattle and has 2 locations on the island. Alt Field is where you'll find the EA-18 Growlers, which we'll check out in a bit. But first, we're going to the original side of the base on the seaplane side.
So we're on the support side of NAS Whidbey Island. So what does that mean? Well, actually, it means that the base exchange is right over there, and you can't see it, but you're gonna see it through the magic of the camera. There's also the grocery store and the gas station, basically everything you need to live here on the island. Now, the cool part about it is that the building that the base exchange is in used to be a PBY base. Now, a PBY, you'll probably know it better as the Catalina, was one of the most famous aircraft of World War II, and it's a seaplane. So you're actually looking at an old seaplane base from 1942. Now, why was it here? Well, we're right next to the Pacific. Who was in the Pacific with us? The Japanese. It's 1942. We got to keep an eye on them. They had submarines out there, and we had to have our patrol boats out there flying around to make sure that they didn't come here. As cool as that is, and as beautiful as the scenery is, there is way more to this base, and let's go check out some of the awesome stuff that's here.
As we headed up to Alt Field to find some growlers, we stumbled across this interesting contraption that we had to show you.
Holy smokes, look at this thing. We were just driving around kind of exploring the base and we came across this. What is it? Well, it's actually where the ABs train. Now, what is an AB? If you don't speak Navy, that's Aviation Bosun's Mate. And those are the guys that are on the flight deck of a carrier, and they're responsible for aircraft movement, aircraft firefighting, all that kind of stuff. And if you get onto an aircraft carrier, you have to take this training. And that all goes back to 1967 when there was a massive fire on the USS Forrestal, and they had a heck of a time trying to get it out. So now, no matter where you are on a carrier, you take this training. It's kind of like the Marine Corps. Every Marine a rifleman, every carrier sailor a firefighter. There's still more to come. Let's keep going. So we've been boogieing around the base on a windshield tour and we've seen some awesome things, but this is why we're here. Home of electronic attack, more than 17 different VAQ squadrons. But why is NAS Whidbey Island right here? That's what we're gonna find out next.
Good timing, too. I was ready to get out of this Pacific Northwest weather. To answer my questions about the base was Public Affairs Officer Mike Welding.
So Mike, as we were doing our kind of windshield tour of the base, we started on the other side, which was the seaplane base, but we're not, I mean, we're right next to the water, but we've got a runway here, and it's called Alt Field. How did Alt come about, and is it named for anybody?
Well, so when they established the base, Seaplane Base was, of course, the first base that they had here for patrol missions. And it was surveyed in 1941, and they established that, but they were also looking for a base where they could have land attack aircraft, and they needed some place that was relatively flat. Clover Valley provided that ideal location. It was a very rural area, and there were mostly farms that were there, so the government was looking at that, and at the time there were hostilities going on with the Japanese, and not outright war, but the survey for Alt Field actually happened on December 8th, the day after the attack at Pearl Harbor. So the Navy bought out all the land from about 20 farmers, and it was about 4,000 acres, and that was Alt Field. The base was ultimately named after Commander William Alt, who led the airborne attack against the Japanese fleet at the Coral Sea, which was very significant in stopping the Japanese advance down towards Australia. And it was the first time that they had met the Japanese forces and fought them to a stalemate.
That's a big deal. So let's jump forward quite a few years. Now, Whidbey Island is literally the home of electronic attack. And it's not just the home for electronic attack for the Navy, it's kind of service-wide.
Yeah, so electronic attack is one of the primary missions that we have here, and Whidbey is the home base of the Department of Defense's Airborne Electronic Attack Community. So in 1972, they brought the EA-6B Prowler here, and that was the Navy's electronic attack aircraft. The Air Force used to do the electronic attack aircraft. They had the F-111, which was taken out of service in the 1990s. And then that mission became the Navy's mission electronic attack with the EA-6B Prowler. So the Prowler brought a significant improvement to the safety of our aircraft when they operate in a hostile environment. Over 1,600 American aircraft were shot down over Vietnam before we had that capability. By Desert Storm, it was down to about 2 aircraft that were shot down. So that played a significant factor in us being able to control that environment when we go into a hostile territory, and it has remained like that. With the Prowler, it came here in 1972. It was an aging platform in the early 2000s, and they picked the EA-18 Growler, which is a derivative of the FA-18 Super Hornet, to replace it, and that transition started in 2008 and was completed in 2015.
Now that we have the base established, it's time to see these EA-18 Growlers up close. Now, if we could just find a Garuda to show us around. Bam! Here's a pilot, Lieutenant John McDonald.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into the Navy and what you do for the VAQ-134 Garudas.
Well, I've been flying since 2012, so a little over 6 years now. Been in Whidbey since 2014 and been with the squadron since 2015. I'm a pilot in the squadron.
Nice.
So yeah.
So you are flying this lovely thing right here.
Yep, that's the EA-18 Growler. The Garuda has been flying it for about 3 years now. We were the last squadron to go safe for flight in this airframe. Before that, we flew the EA-6B Prowler, then sundowned that in 2014.
And we are lucky enough actually to have the old CAG bird for VAQ-134, and we are really happy to have it. Thank you, U.S. Navy. Let's go take a walk around this thing and look at some of this stuff.
All right.
So since the EA-18 Growler is primarily a carrier aircraft, you guys have got a really serious set of landing gear here.
Yes, we do. So you notice it's obviously a lot beefier, more robust than the landing gear you'd find on your basic civilian aircraft or even an Air Force fighter jet. How big it is really is so when we land on the aircraft carrier, we fly like a constant angle of attack all the way down to the flight deck. So there's no flaring or any kind of cushioning of that landing at all. So it's got to be able to, it's got to be able to absorb that abuse. So hence the largeness of the landing gear.
That's cool. Well, while we're talking about being on a carrier, let's go take the wings, because you guys do something that every carrier aircraft does.
Yep.
And you fold the wings.
That's right.
Let's go look at that. What? Oh, sorry. I get all goofy when I'm looking at planes. All right, so right here is the wing fold. And so you guys can literally fold the tips of your wings up so you can get what?
Correct. So from here to the length of the wingtips on either side, you can fold the wings up, and that's so when you're on the deck of an aircraft carrier, it's obviously close quarters. So we raise those wings in order to create more space on the flight deck so the directors can park us in tighter quarters.
So, and your wingspan is like what, 45 feet. So if you can shave anything off of there, it's good for the carrier and get more aircraft on. All right, so you guys are more than just a regular Super Hornet. You're carrying ECM pods. I mean, that's the reason you exist.
Correct. So we carry typically up to 3 ALQ-99 jamming pods, which are the same pods that the EA-6B carried as well.
Okay.
So those are used to target enemy radars and jam their signals. We also have ALQ-218 on each wingtip, which are essentially receiver pods, which can detect emitting signals from radars, and then we can geolocate them.
Okay.
And then we also have air-to-ground and air-to-air capabilities. So our air-to-ground weapons are the HARM, AGM-88,
Okay,
which targets radiating emitters. And then our air-to-air capability is the AIM-120, the AMRAAM, used to target enemy fighters.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, I know people are going to ask when they see this video, so let's go look at what powers this bad boy so we can talk about how fast it goes. Because that's what you want to know, right? So this is where all the cool stuff happens. This is the arresting hook, which does what?
Yep, so our tail hook, when you're landing aboard the aircraft carrier, it'll be down, and it'll take you from your approach speed, so roughly 130 to 140 knots based on your weight, to an abrupt stop as you try to catch one of the wires with this hook.
Ooh, I bet that's a fun ride.
Yeah, it is pretty fun.
I bet. And then these guys are the GE-414s, and that gets you from point A to point B really, really fast.
Yep, so dual engine. You'll notice there's these look like turkey feathers on the back. Those are the vents, the variable exhaust nozzles. So the shape of the engine will actually expand and contract based on throttle position and how much thrust you're kicking out at that time.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, these guys kick out, what is it, like 22,000 pounds of thrust in afterburner?
That's right.
Each?
Yep, each one.
That's a heck of a ride.
It is fun. Supersonic jet goes fast at the speed of sound, so.
Woo. What is your top speed?
Well, if it's don't have a whole lot of stores hanging off the jet, it can go above 1.5, 1.6. So, but
That
typically
is a
with
fun
our loadout, you're going a little bit slower.
Yeah, I bet. You're carrying a lot of stuff. Speaking of carrying a lot of stuff, you have an EWO in back, and I hear he's running around somewhere.
He's somewhere. He's behind me. Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's go find him.
It didn't take long after talking with Lieutenant McDonald to find an ECMO from the Garudas, and we found a good one. Lieutenant Rob Slow Roll Heller.
So you were an EWO.
Yes.
What exactly does that mean?
We're basically going after enemy radars. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know, a boxing match or even like kids playing at a birthday party, a piñata, it's hard to hit that piñata when there's a blindfold over a kid's face, right? So I think that we basically just put the blindfold over the enemy's face so the U.S. can go in and accomplish their mission and get out without ever being seen.
I like that analogy, but you mentioned something that's interesting. We have a Prowler in our museum, and that carried 4 guys. The Growler only carries 2. Is that more of a workload for you?
It's definitely a huge workload, but just like everything else, technology has improved. As a crew, we really work together to knock out still the same workload that those 4 people had.
That's amazing. So you're in your flight suit, But when you go flying, you're definitely in a lot more gear than just this.
Oh yeah.
Do you have some of that we can look at?
Oh, of course.
All right, slow roll. Take us through what it takes to get all of this stuff on, because you're not just flying in that, are you?
No, absolutely not. So there are 4 main pieces of gear that we use. My favorite would be the G suit. So all aircrew have a baseline G tolerance, G's being the amount of gravity on the body.
Okay.
So 1 G would be normal Earth's gravity, and then 2 to 3 G's would be 2 to 3 times the gravity, all right?
Okay.
So every aircrew has a baseline for that. Mine's about 3.5, but this bad boy gives me about an extra 1 to 2 G's without doing anything, without doing any type of anti-G straining maneuver.
Oh, wow.
So it's designed to have a few bladders in it. One throughout the top of the legs and then one down near the calves, where it helps me keep all the blood above my waist as we're pulling G's, so I don't black out or pass out or anything like
Right,
that.
otherwise the blood's just coming right out of your head and then your vision goes into tunnel
Exactly.
vision and then boom, you're out.
Without oxygen in your head or to your eyes, it gets dark really quick. So,
That's important if you're flying.
oh yeah, definitely want to be able to see if you're flying, you know what I mean? The next thing would be the harness. Now this has 8 connection points that connect directly to the seat, which is super important because that seat actually has a parachute in it. So if we eject, if that day comes for me, if I don't have this connected, I could be falling out of that parachute, right? So that's going to be super important to have this connected at all 8 points.
Also important. So what you're saying is all this gear is very important.
Yes, all this is essential for survival.
Good to know.
Next we have the survival vest. This has a few cool things on it. So this is our LPUs. If I'm ever in water, it's automatically activated by seawater. So if I'm knocked out or anything like that, I hit the water, boom, this can inflate right away. So that's super cool, keep you alive. We have a radio, and we have a bunch of little pockets that have things like knives in them. We have flashlights, we have water, all types of things that can keep you alive if you're ever in the wilderness from after an ejection. Lastly on this, we have our air regulator. So this is going to be super good to have, having this oxygen hose, because as you fly 25, 30,000 feet in the air, air's a lot thinner, so we need to have something pumping pure oxygen to us at all times.
And you wear that from start to finish?
From takeoff to shutdown.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Now, this being the Pacific Northwest and this being a survival vest, is there some way to put like Starbucks in there or maybe Tully's?
Oh man, I wish. I mean, maybe a few hot cocoa packets. Ooh, you can actually carry up to 5 extra pounds on that thing, but really? It's pretty heavy already, so it just depends. You got to really make some decisions on what you want to take. So this is the big coup de grace, right? The helmet. This bad boy is our JHMX, Joint Helmet Mounted Cueing System, and this is super expensive for what it does. So it has a computer on the top of it, and it basically gives me a ton of information right to my eyes. So it's almost like having a HUD on your head.
Wow, that is really cool. And I'm assuming it also works with like night vision goggles and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, it definitely does. Yeah.
So you were telling me earlier that you can, if you're literally wearing this and you're looking around and you can't find a target, you can look down and it'll look right through the plane.
Well, it won't show you like the systems in the plane, but yes, you can definitely see something right through. If it's below you, if it's to the side of you, if it's without your vision. If I'm looking for one of my wingmen, I can definitely look out, and if I can't see him right away, I can get an indicator showing me exactly where he's at.
That is so cool.
Definitely.
Well, Slow Roll, I appreciate everything. You have been awesome.
Definitely.
Now, are you flying today?
I'm not flying today, but there are a few guys getting ready for a mission, so let's stick around for that.
If you want to rule the electronic battlefield, this is your aircraft. It's given stealth to the U.S. military for nearly 50 years and is only just recently given its job to a more sophisticated aircraft. From exploring the unique features of the Prowler in our collection at Wings Over the Rockies, to visiting Naval Air Station Whidbey Island to check out the successor of this aircraft, the Growler, we've taken you behind the wings of the EA-6B Prowler.
I'm Matthew Burchett, and this is Behind the Wings, and bam! That is a Cessna 172 Skyhawk. Oh, yeah. Okay, all goofiness aside, because we always have to have some of that in an episode of Behind the Wings, I'm actually standing in front of our Boeing Blue Sky Aviation Gallery, which is actually phase one of Wings Over the Rockies' much larger exploration of flight campus here on Centennial Airport. That's pretty exciting. Speaking of flying, this episode is not about Blue Sky, it's about that little guy, the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, and that baby looks like she needs a pilot. Luckily, you got me. Okay, I'm not a pilot, but I know where to find one.
Now I say this a lot, but how cool is this? You guys are getting a really inside look at this thing. Not everyone gets to do that.
Bam, 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 bam.
In 1911, the aviation bug bit Clyde's Cessna hard, and he ended up building one of the first monoplanes west of the Mississippi. He taught himself to fly it less than a decade after the Wright brothers' first flight. After years of trial and error, Cessna moved to Wichita, Kansas and started his own company, the Cessna Aircraft Company, in 1927. Over time, the Cessna Aircraft Company designed and built hundreds of thousands of aircraft for commercial, general, and military aviation, but none more popular than the little 172. The first Cessna 172 went on sale in 1956, and the Cessna Aircraft Company continued to refine the design. Since its first flight in 1955, Cessna has sold more than 44,000 172s, making it the single most widely produced aircraft in history. Let's catch up with a current 172 pilot who can show us this innovation firsthand. So we're here with Brooks Dickerson, who's a student in Metropolitan State University of Denver, and you are part of their aerobatic team, is that correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
So what's it like to be a part of the aerobatic team? I mean, what are you flying for those guys?
So the aerobatic team, we actually have a team of about 20 members now at school, and we go out and fly a series of aerobatic maneuvers in front of 3 judges, sometimes 4, and then that gets scored against the other schools, and we compete in that way.
Cool.
So it's a really neat collegiate program to be a part of.
All right, so Brooks, I know that this thing has got like a wingspan of like 32 feet or something.
36.
Like 36 feet, see?
36
That's
feet.
why you're the expert. But what is this doohickey?
So this thing here is something that you actually are going to see on almost every single airplane that has ever been produced. It's what's called a pitot tube. And
Okay.
what this does is gives the pilot an accurate indication of airspeed. So that's how fast the airplane is moving through the air.
So at our museum, we have mostly military aircraft.
Right.
A lot of the pitot tubes are like way out in front, so it's kind of odd, I guess, to see it here, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, you kind of need clean air.
Right, you're going to need clean air, and you know, on something, let's say, take the F4 for example. You know, you got a big old pitot tube right on the front.
Right.
On the F4, you don't have a prop out front that's polluting the air and turning it up.
Now, when I was messing around earlier, I saw something on the wingtip of this thing that I want to show you and ask you about because it makes no sense to me. So here we are in a wildly sophisticated airplane, yet we got a little tiny piece of plexiglass
hanging out here. What the heck is that thing?
What that does is it indicates to the pilot that our navigation lights are working. If they are, we should see one red light on our left side and one green light on the right side.
Just like a boat?
Exactly.
Okay.
Just like a boat.
Now I got it. All right, so this guy's the elevator, controls the pitch of the aircraft, otherwise up and down. Sure. But what are these little doohickey thingies?
So these little things here, and you can see them that they're also on the ailerons. On an all-metal airplane like this, these are what's called static wakes. What these do is as the airplane moves through the air, it causes a static bit buildup, similar to if you are walking across carpet in socks, right? So what this does is discharges the static back into the air so it doesn't interfere with your radios or navigation.
Well, you know, that's probably a good thing because this has not got what they call a steam gauge cockpit.
Correct.
This thing is like fully glass.
Absolutely.
Let's go check that out.
Sure.
All right, so this does not look like your standard 172 cockpit. What is going on with all this glass?
So what we're looking at here is the state-of-the-art avionics package known as the Garmin G1000 NXI. Now that's the top of the line, most modern avionics that you can equip in a single engine airplane here. So basically what a glass cockpit does and what the NXI has done here is taken all of our steam gauges and put them in an easier to read compact format here on this screen here. So the pilot no longer has to scan too far around. He can scan his instruments right here. Now the engine that's sitting in front of us is a 155 horsepower turbo diesel engine. So this airplane is fueled by Jet A, which is actually about $1.50 cheaper per gallon than avgas.
Okay, I can start to see the allure.
This airplane, we're showing about a max speed of about 143 miles an hour. So that's
not bad.
Say 143 miles an hour in a straight line. That'll get you to your destination a lot faster than driving, right?
Let's take this baby out. You cool with that?
Absolutely.
I didn't think you'd say no. You can't just be in the plane. You gotta fly the plane.
So most of the airplanes that you're going to see for training out here today are Cessna 172s. They are just good, honest planes.
Yeah, it's amazing. This thing is fun.
So, Matt, whenever you're ready, put your hands on the yoke. Now, what we really like to do here is I'm a big fan of not over controlling the airplane.
Right.
You got both hands up here. Oftentimes you're going to be real,
heavy-handed.
Heavy on the control. So I really like to just kind of fly with one hand. In your case, you're going to fly with your right hand, so you got your left hand, the throttle here.
Yeah, you do not have to have a lot of...
There's not a lot of force on it. It's what I like to tell folks is airplane's going to want to continue to fly. Your only job as the pilot is to manipulate it. There's a lot of misconceptions that you have to try to keep the airplane in the air. And specifically with the 172 especially, that is not the case. That was the idea behind the Cessna 172 is a easy flying, easy operating trainer. And Cessna hit it right on the head.
Yeah, no kidding. This thing is
the most successful airplane sales-wise and manufacturing-wise that had been built. And there's still, flight schools are still operating these today. Now, if you can kind of see the smoky outline of downtown there,
right.
Why don't you give us a slight right turn, head right towards downtown, and we can get a nice circling view of it.
We just got back from our super cool flight with Brooks Dickerson, but now we're here at Centennial Airport and we're actually sitting in a 1998 Cessna Skyhawk that belongs to the Aspen Flying Club, and we're literally right across the runway from our second location, the Blue Sky Gallery. But you'll notice I have this fetching young woman, Hetty Carlson. She runs our teacher flight program. Hetty, tell us about this kind of old school Skyhawk.
I love the old school, by the way.
It is kind of cool.
It is. As you notice that there are analog steam gauges instead of our XTI G1000 glass cockpit.
You know, if it was good enough for Lindbergh, it's got to be good enough for us.
Exactly. The engine is also different. This has a Lycoming 180 horsepower engine and it's a normally aspirated gas-powered reciprocating engine.
So the one we were just in was actually a turbo diesel.
Correct.
Which is great for up here because the turbo thinks it's at, you know, sea level all the time.
Right.
Whereas this poor guy, it's like, I'm at 6,800 feet already.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
not fun for a plane.
Yeah.
So, Hetty, did you know that Cessna has actually built 44,000 Skyhawks?
That's amazing.
That's a huge number. And what's even way crazier is the fact that America, China, any number of European countries are all scrambling for Skyhawks because they desperately need pilots.
The need is great. In fact, Boeing estimates that in the next 18 years, we're going to need 2 million more aviation personnel.
Whoa.
That includes pilots, air traffic control, maintenance, flight attendants even, and that's a worldwide number.
That's nuts. You know, it gets me to thinking, how is Cessna going to keep up with demand? You know, since we are an Air and Space Museum, we probably could, you know, fly there and knock on their door.
Maybe.
I say we take a little trip to Wichita and talk to the people that are actually building these planes and see what kind of information we can get. We aren't in Kansas anymore. Wait, oh, we are in Kansas anymore. Specifically, we're in Independence, Kansas, which is home to the Independence Community College Pirates. Go Pirates! Great football team, but more importantly, bam, Cessna manufacturing. How cool is that? And so we're gonna go see where the Cessna Skyhawk is made. That is some cool stuff. Let's go check it out. We're inside the production facility, and this is Paula Schabel, who's the GM here. As you can see behind us, there's a lot going on down on the floor here. So you guys produce what?
So what we build out here is the 172, the 182, and the 206 single-engine high wing. And then we also build the M2 jets and the 208, 208B caravan line.
All right, so this is literally only one building out of 5. So as GM, you have a whole lot going on. You're kind of like the Henry Ford of Independence, Kansas, aren't you?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
That's very cool. So why did production move here to Independence? We were in Wichita. Why just kind of uproot and bring like one little slice down here?
Well, so we started with the single-engine high-wing aircraft. It was originally built in Wichita, but in 1986 they did cease production. And our chairman at the time, Russ Meyer, said he would not bring those aircraft back until we had some product liability relief. So fortunate for us, in 1994, President Clinton signed a General Aviation Revitalization Act.
It was an act to help you guys produce more aircraft that obviously we desperately need.
Right, so there had been an 18-year span in between that time. So of course Wichita had picked up some other models, so at that time they weren't able to produce a single-engine high wing, so they had to look elsewhere for plants to build those types of aircraft.
Well, very
and here we are.
Paula was kind enough to give us a tour of the assembly line where the 172 Skyhawk is being manufactured. All of this stuff is assembled by hand. There are no robots on the Skyhawk line. It's a perfect example of an American-made product. You look at everything and realize just how much goes into the production of this plane and how many hours it takes for the finished product to roll out the door. As each Skyhawk finishes up in the assembly building, it moves over to paint. Let's catch up with Paula to see the next step in the process.
So when we bring the aircraft in from the assembly building, we bring it over to our sand and fill area, and they'll wipe the plane down completely to remove all the excess dust, debris that's on it. And then they'll start to mask the aircraft with paper, cover the windows to ensure that when we go in to do the primes, the sanding, it doesn't get inside the aircraft. And then from there, then we bring it out of the sand and fill booth, and we bring it over into our paint booth over here.
Okay.
And that's when it receives its first top coat or base coat.
You know, I think one of the things that people don't realize is that you don't just unwrap a Cessna 172 Skyhawk and it's immediately this beautiful thing that you bought. There's a whole process of getting it to look like this. right back there, we were literally putting on top coat, and then we were buffing and then hand painting rivets where some of the buffing had taken the paint off. So tell us how we got from there to literally here.
To finish off the paint detail, after touching up on those rivets, we lay out the vinyl graphics on the aircraft.
Okay.
And then after that position, we move into the engine install. So we start installing the engine, we start installing avionics, and then we also install the interior.
Wow. And then obviously hooking everything up, making sure everything kind of works. I noticed actually this guy's got a light on, so we've got battery power to it, that kind of thing. And then from here, you're going to roll it out and test fly it, I assume.
That's right. So it'll go into our flight hangar, where we'll start putting everything into service with the engine, putting fuel in the aircraft, getting it ready for its first flight.
This is a real plane.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we've been everywhere, but this is the final destination, as it was, and we are in the flight building. And so what happens here that literally will get this guy out the door into a customer?
So we just left our paint facility, and with that, we'll start putting our oil into our engines and get our fuel into our wings, and then we'll take it outside the hangar here in the doors and run over to the airport and do a compass swing and do our engine runs, and then we'll bring it back into the facility and start getting it ready for our pilots to get it released for first flight.
So once a pilot gets a corporate pilot, a Cessna pilot gets this, they'll take it up and then they'll squawk it, come back, and you'll do any little tweaks to that, and then literally to right onto the customer.
In the same area right here, we'll do our squawks as well.
Oh, okay.
And then once those are completed and the pilots have bought off on it, then we bring in our ODAR inspectors, and they inspect it one last time before we close it all up and it goes to the delivery center.
So I mean, you guys are really putting it under the microscope to make sure that it's ready for the customer.
Yes, it goes through
That's
several inspections.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Well, Paula, thank you so much. You guys have been awesome. I mean, we've spent literally all day with you, and we have seen more than probably 99% of Skyhawk pilots will ever see, and we thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But I think it's time that we do what we always do, and let's go fly. Right off the assembly line, a Cessna 172 Skyhawk. That's pretty cool. This is even cooler. Mindy Lindheim. She is going to be our demo pilot today. She is the regional sales director. Mindy, thank you so much.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
This is really cool. You got a cake gig, girl.
I don't know about cake, but it is fun.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So tell us a little bit about how you got this job. Where did you come from? How did you become a pilot?
I'm from Florida, was originally interested in aerospace medicine, got to reading about pilots and how they can't take certain medicines. So the more I read about pilots, the more interested I was in that. So I talked to a neighbor who was a Delta pilot, and he suggested to go on a discovery flight, and I loved it. So
that is so cool.
Went through school for it, got my rating, started flight instructing, and then I got picked up by Textron.
That is, man, I cannot think of a better job, except maybe the job I have, because this is pretty fun. So earlier, we literally went through everything. We have seen how these things are built, and now we've got one right behind us.
Absolutely. I'd love to show you around the Skyhawk.
Let's start right here with the engine.
So this is the Lycoming IO360. It's 180 horsepower, normally aspirated, so a little bit different than what you saw with the JTA.
Right.
This takes 100 low lead. It goes 124 knots is the max cruise speed at about 9 to 10 gallons per hour.
Okay, all right, quick. Knots to miles per hour. 124 knots equals?
About 145 miles per hour.
Oh, all right, very cool. Well then let's take this bad boy up.
Let's do it.
All right.
I will say this is not what I had in mind when I thought of Kansas.
Yeah, it's nice and green.
It is.
Portions of rolling hills. So there's a little bit of terrain out here.
And you get to do this for a living.
I get to do this for a living. I get to take up people like you that are interested in the aircraft, tell them all about it, show them all about it, take them flying, and hopefully they'll want to buy one. This is the most widely produced aircraft trainer. We've made, like you mentioned before, over 44,000 Skyhawks, and with that many Skyhawks out, there's so many people out there that are knowledgeable about how to work on them, how to fly them.
That's a good point.
It makes it a really safe aircraft in that aspect too, just that there's so much information out there that you can find about the airplane. Same with the avionics, the engine, they're well-proven avionics suites and the Lycoming engine's been around for a long time, especially this model. It's a really easy, stable aircraft to fly. It's very forgiving, and it can take your first couple of hard landings.
Which I'm sure I will add.
So this is the new G1000 NXI. You probably noticed how quickly it came on. It has a much faster processor, better resolution. It even identifies what frequency is active. So right now you can see it says KIDP Unicom. So we got Independence Unicom active. And that really helps so you don't pull up to the runway ready to go and let ground know that you're ready to take off when you're supposed to be on tower. So it can save you from some embarrassing moments.
It sounds like you may have done that once or twice.
Just once, only once. Super smart, it makes flying pretty easy. Of course, we have the moving map on the right side. You can have your flight plan in there, get airport weather information. We have radar on board.
Now I also noticed it has Sirius XM.
Yeah, so it has XM radio and weather. So Sirius provides our weather service. That's our onboard weather radar that we have. And it looks just like you would have like on an app on your phone. You can see there's some weather out here by Louisiana. And then it has all the same radio stations just like you do in your car. And whenever you or air traffic control starts talking, it'll automatically mute the radio so that you can listen in.
It's amazing how much newer automobiles and aircraft are now starting to become, I mean, almost one and the same.
Yeah, and on purpose, there's a lot of features in aircraft that they make kind of like cars so that you feel more comfortable and your family feels comfortable in it too, so they can see what's going on and read that you're only 30 minutes from your destination so that everyone's not so in the dark. Everyone can easily read and see what's going on. So we're just going to start slowing up, getting flaps in. We're going to start turning in here in just a second. Independence traffic, Skyhawk 6 Tango Alpha is turning left base 17 Independence.
All right, that was awesome. I love flying. I really love flying when Mindy is the pilot.
Thank
Mindy,
you.
you're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really great. I hate to do this, but we're going to leave you.
Where are you going?
Well, we're going back to Wichita, which you guys are not going to want to miss because it is going to be well worth the trip. I'm here with Jay Robert, who is the Director of Operations for Textron Aviation's East Campus. Jay, it's nice to have you here. So give me a real quick overview of what you do.
So my responsibility is basically to make sure that the aircraft are built in the assembly lines when we need to build them.
That's kind of a big job.
Yes, it is.
Wow. All right, well, speaking of aircraft, can we go see some?
Absolutely.
Let's go. Woo, it's a big building. Yeah. So it's a little bit different than Independence. What's going on here?
So we got a lot of manufacturing going on, a lot of the King Air products. We also got the piston products that we'll see down the line, and then we got the next generation coming with the Longitude.
Ooh, I bet that's kind of cool.
It's really exciting. A lot of new technology, a different way of building an aircraft compared to what we've built in the past.
I bet. So how exactly big is this building?
So a little over 450,000 square feet that we actually have from a manufacturing space.
Whoa. Literally, it's kind of like Independence. I mean, everybody has been here quite a while. They take pride in what they're doing.
A huge heritage within this business. A lot of people have a lot of passion around what they build. Right from the very beginning, there's a lot of generations that pass, you know, from mother and father down to their kid. It even dates back even to grandfather and grandmother of who comes into this business and works. So yeah, I would say, you know, with Wichita, Kansas being the air capital of the world, it's passed on with passion. You know, it's a very good livelihood for anybody, and it's carried on throughout the generations.
If you thought the facility in Independence was impressive, this place is enormous. Like the 172 Skyhawk, the aircraft here are mostly assembled by hand. Well, except for the Citation Longitude. That's Textron's super secret sauce. Jay was telling me that it's built with monolithic structures, has bonded metal technology instead of rivets, and they even designed it to be uber quiet with new soundproof tech. Talk about innovation coming out of Cessna. I guess they don't call Wichita the air capital of the world for nothing. This is an aircraft everyone has seen and everyone knows about. It's the most widely produced aircraft of all time, and we got to see it like no one else has before. From flying the 172 Skyhawk over downtown Denver, to going onto the production line in Independence, Kansas, and even seeing what Textron has in store for the future in Wichita, we've taken you behind the wings of the Cessna 172 Skyhawk. So, did you know that... No, I didn't. Of Denver.
All right, that was the only one, I swear.
Hey. Jay, it's nice to have you here. Thank you so much.
Whatever. We set you up, man. That was good. That was good.